Charles, I have a revelation for you.
Oh, a revelation.
1 year ago today, my friend texted me about his morning walk, and he decided that morning walks were like the thing now, for Sundays at least. You should go on a morning walk. It's a good way to, experience the early part of the day, walk around, see some things, wake up. See, it's a nice thing. Morning walks are good, okay? He texted me that. I, at this time, was working a morning shift. So I immediately complained and said if I took a morning walk, it would be at midnight, right before my shift at 1 a.m. So I complained, and he said, okay, well, in 1 year, you have to take a morning walk, because he assumed that I wouldn't be working at that job anymore. And well and behold, 1 year from that day is today, and I took a morning walk this morning. It was fantastic.
I'm so
I walked
glad to
around
hear
the
it.
city, went to the art museum, went to get coffee. It was great. Great time. Morning walks, good thing.
Sounds
good
nice.
Thing. Love morning walk.
I fully thought
But
you were
now,
going to
Charlie,
say that you fucking hated it. That's what I was waiting for you to say.
No. Why would I hate
I
a
don't
morning
know.
walk?
You got bird shit on you?
What could you hate?
Homeless guy mugged you? I don't know. Something could happen.
That's true. But Charlie, I now charge you and whoever's listening to take a morning walk on February 22nd, 2026.
I got to write this down.
That is a Sunday.
Yeah.
February 22nd, 2026. Today's the 23rd, but the 23rd's a Monday next year. So the 22nd, next year, 1 year from now, you must take a morning walk. It's gonna be great. You're gonna feel invigorated. You're gonna feel alive. You're gonna experience life in a new way in your morning walk.
Oh, that's exciting. Now, I have a question. If you die in between now and then, right? Could I take that walk on February 22nd, 2026 at any time of day and have it still be a morning walk?
What?
Because I'm in mourning. Because my good friend Jake has died.
Oh, I see.
A little bit of wordplay for you.
Yes, hilarious. Unless I die like tomorrow, then you're like mourning a year from now, which would be weird. But
if you died tomorrow, that would be
if I
sad
die
and
within 1 month of your morning walk, you can make it a morning walk. Do it at any
time of day.
If not, though, you have to do it in the morning.
Okay, I have to.
Morning is before 11. So like start at like I would say you should start at least 9, maybe earlier.
Damn.
But at least
you're
9.
asking a lot of me. I don't usually wake up until 9.
That's the point, This is a special. I'm asking you to do something once a year from now. You can't wake up at 9 o'clock a year from now. Really?
See, I think I will have had a rough night before. I probably won't be feeling all that hot. So I'm gonna have to decline.
You cannot drink on Saturday, February 21st.
Fuck. Okay.
You could do that once.
You know what? You drive a hard bargain, but I will accept these terms.
Okay.
And you know what else I will accept, Jacob? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, our producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell, Charles. I'm excited. We're back for another episode of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. You've got a new pitch this week with a bit of a tough title.
A bit of a tough title. Fuck off with that. That was a ridiculous title.
You've given me quite a few ridiculous ones, so I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Byron on the Moors, but I heard you might want to change the title slightly.
Slightly, ever so slightly. But I would like to, first off, I want to explain all the thought processes I went through when trying to figure out what this fucking show's gonna be about, right? Because Byron on the Moors, right? First thought, obviously, Lord Byron, right? Very famous poet, womanizer, that kind of person. And the Moors, right? And I know my mind went to the place Wuthering Heights is set, right? This kind of expanse of flat, like sort of hilly land, but it's like very small hills and there's lots of fog and stuff like that. And I know you went Moors, like the ethnic group, right, that lived in Southern Europe and North Africa, and may still do. I don't know the history of the Moors, right? And so, first thought when I heard the title Byron on the Moors is like I put Lord Byron in like Wuthering Heights, or I put him in the Moors somehow. And I was like, that's kind of lame because I don't know anything about Lord Byron, so I'd have to do research into Lord Byron, and I don't know anything about Wuthering Heights, and so I'd have to do research into Wuthering Heights, right? Or into the Moors, the group of people, right? So, my second thought, and I think that this is kind of a fun idea, is it's Byron on the Moors, and so Lord Byron is hosting a sort of, like, Love Island style reality romance show where the whole cast of people is made up of like rich, elitist, snobby, like Victorian era dandies and dandiesses, right? And Byron is kind of your, you know, he's the MC, he's the guy who's doing the questions and hosting it. He's the Joe Rogan to this show's Fear Factor, right? I thought that was kind of fun, but again, I don't want to have to do research into these people, and so I fell in that regard in that I did research Lord Byron, right? And then I was like, you know what? Fuck Lord Byron. Seems like he was a bad guy, first of all. He doesn't seem like he was a very good person. But second of all, Lord Byron had a
complicated figure.
Very complicated man. Very, very complicated man. But I noticed that it wasn't Lord Byron on the Moors. It was just Byron on the Moors. And so I was like, ooh, you know who else is named Byron?
A fictional
That's right.
character that you made up?
Lady Byron. No, Lord Byron's actual wife from history. And they were married for like 3 months or something, but she still kept the name, you know?
I love your extremely limited knowledge about all these figures and about where everything is.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. It's history. It's fun. You know you're the history guy, right? But I did do a little bit of research into Lady Byron, and she was an abolitionist and a philanthropist, which I think is very interesting, right? And then I decided to crumple all of this shit up, and I threw it in the bin, because I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna come up with my own thing. So now, it is changed from Byron on the Moors to Byron on the Moor. So Moor is now spelled M-O-R-E, right?
Okay.
Now our main character, Byron
Still know where we're
Snipes.
going here.
Yeah, no one does.
Okay.
Byron Snipes, an extremely wealthy and powerful individual with vast resources at his disposal, who has lived his life in the lap of luxury, knowing full well that others suffer greatly for his life, right? His opulence. But he cannot really conceive of any other way of being. He is somebody who has lived in such opulence his entire life that he cannot conceive of maybe giving up a little bit so that other people can live comfortably. He's like, I will live to the fullest extent that I am able, right? And I can't imagine being any other way. Knowing that my slaves and my servants and my chefs and all these people suffer for it. I just kind of can't fathom it, you know? This is set in the far future, by the way, like crazy space time.
Hell yeah, I figured.
Yeah, it's on some planet in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. Who cares about the
hold
planet?
up. Before you get any farther, did anything you said before right now have anything to do with the story at all?
Oh no, not at all. I just wanted the setup so that people can kind of see where I was coming from in here.
I thought that's where it was going. Just complete utter bullshit.
Yeah, complete and utter bullshit. Just kind of a fun startup. Getting the engines revved, as they say. And he is also a devout accessionist, right? And we'll get into what accessionism is. But he is this massive, super wealthy dude who lives in basically this massive palace in the middle of Coruscant from fucking Star Wars or whatever. You know, just think of any super advanced alien planet, right? And he is an accessionist, which is a religion, and we will get into that. But we're gonna go on to our second main character, who is Mr. Lark, Byron's driver / bodyguard / assistant on the moor. He is a kind man with great patience for Byron's stupidity and ignorance, right? He is a down-to-earth dude, Mr. Lark. Byron never even asks his first name because Byron doesn't care. But Mr. Lark is very empathetic and emotionally intelligent, but he does have limits to his patience. He's not fucking Alfred to Byron's Bruce Wayne, right? He doesn't have like unlimited tolerance for Byron's bullshit. So every once in a while there will be a snap or two, but Mr. Lark is kind of shepherding Byron through this experience called the Moor, right? And now we're gonna get into accessionism and the Moor. So accessionism in this universe is a religion in which it is believed that the best and most efficient way to become closer with the ultimate deity is through excess, is through experiencing everything to the utmost that you can, right? And these accessionists, obviously, are people who with extreme means, very wealthy people, powerful individuals, right? And it is demanded of every true accessionist to go on a religious pilgrimage, right? Called the Moor, in which they jump from planet to planet, and each planet is dedicated to one realm of excess, right? And when you're on that planet, you experience that excess to the greatest unimaginable degree, right? And then the next day you move on and you go to a different planet and you do that. And I have a list of all the excesses right here, right? And so the whole concept of the show is Lark escorts Byron across the galaxy on this pilgrimage, right? And Byron and Lark kind of become more friendly and closer, right? As Byron sort of learns more about himself, and Lark sort of functions as the anchor on which Byron like holds everything, because Lark is not a wealthy man, but he is happy, and Byron has everything, but he is unhappy, you know? So, the excesses that I have in mind are sex, right? Alcohol, drugs, fighting, loving, art, sleep, compassion, filth, and relaxation, right? And so some of them are very obvious excesses, right? Drugs, alcohol, sex, right? Those are reasonably, I think everyone can understand where those come from. But sleep, compassion, right? Filth, these are excesses that are a little bit more esoteric, a little harder to grasp, but that's why we've got a whole planet dedicated to them, you know? Do you have any questions before we get into the actual show proper?
So is it just these two guys, or is there anybody else that's coming in?
Well, it's these two dudes, and they will run into characters along their journey, you know? Because Lark does have people at home, right? And Byron runs into people on the moor, right? Mm-hmm. But the first episode opens with Byron and Lark meeting for the first time in a very small bar. Byron is flanked on all sides by beautiful people and is drinking $1 million bottle of wine, right? It's also like 9 a.m. He explains
Maybe he just
to
went
Lark
for a morning walk.
Yeah, maybe he just went for a morning walk. No, Byron, has sent Lark a message because he's heard that Lark is a man who can do things, you know. He's not judgy, he's not stupid, but he's not cowardly either, right? He's somebody who can get you from point A to point B and make sure that everything is okay along the way, you know? And so he sent Lark a message, and they're meeting up for the first time in this small bar, right? And there, Byron explains what the moor is and his pilgrimage and what Lark's job will be during it, right? To keep the vehicle safe, to make sure that Byron maintains most of his faculties, right? All that stuff.
So
and
he's like a glorified, like, trip sitter guy.
Yeah, trip sitter, nanny, driver,
like
bodyguard.
A butler, but like he's more than that. More professional. Well,
exactly.
Butler's professional. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're getting it. He is a trip sitter. He is there to make sure Byron doesn't hurt himself, right?
Yeah.
And after a small like kind of like, should I not? Byron mentions the fee that Lark will be receiving after the completion of the moor, and Lark is like immediately snaps it up, right? Because he needs the money. And Lark agrees, and he shakes Byron's hand, and Byron like sends him out the bar, like, oh, all right, be on your way then, Mr. Lark, right? And he, has a gorgeous model like pour the wine in his mouth, and he like it overflows and dribbles down his shirt, but he doesn't care that like each drop is worth $10,000 or something ridiculous like that, because he's exceptionally wealthy and he doesn't give a fuck. And then we follow Lark as he goes through this city, and it's sort of like a cross between, like I said, Coruscant and the city from Blade Runner, LA from Blade Runner. So things are dingy, and there are like prostitutes everywhere, and people are in weird masks, but things are also like heavily science fiction-y. They're flying cars and weird aliens and crazy genetically modified people and all sorts of fun stuff, right? And we follow Lark as he walks through the city, and he's like friendly with people, and he's like, hey, Mitchell, how's it going, blah blah blah, right? All this stuff. And eventually Lark gets home, and that's where you meet his two roommates. One of them is maybe potentially his lover, who knows, because it's very strange. It's a small dog, like a chihuahua, that has had a woman's head grafted onto the neck of it. And so it is just a woman, right? And she's walking around on a dog body, and she's like, "Ooh, yay, nice to see you," right? We won't get into why that is, but needless to say, it is probably has something to do with the massive amount of wealth disparity in this crazy universe, right? And a robotic vacuum cleaner with a sexy voice, like a sexy Marilyn Monroe, very breathy voice, And it's like, is Lark having sex with any of these two beings? Is he having sex with both of them? Like, what's the deal? And it's like very needless, I would say needlessly ambiguous, because I think that's funny.
Yeah.
But like he goes in there and he says hi to his dog wife and his vacuum cleaner wife, and they both they all hug, and they all like have dinner together, and they're very joyous, right? And very happy, right? They wake up the next day, and this is the first day of the moor, right? So Lark wakes up, and his dog girlfriend has already made coffee for him, and she like gives him a kiss on the cheek, right? And the vacuum cleaner is like, goodbye, blah, 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 we'll keep the place tidy for you, that sort of thing. And so Lark, in a very wholesome manner, like gets his thermos full of coffee, and he kisses his dog wife on the cheek, and he kisses his vacuum cleaner on the cheek, and then he like walks down to his taxi, and he gets in, and he drives away, right? And he drives up to Byron's insane mansion, right? Like think the mansion from Aladdin, the Disney movie, but like crazy and science fiction, right? And it has this massive hall, that's just covered in crazy trophies and weird sculptures and crazy art and all this stuff, right? And then in the middle of this hall, you just see Byron sitting bored and alone on his massive throne, right? And he's just kind of tired, seemingly. Like he knows he should be excited for the moor because it's the most exciting thing the accessionists can do, but he's just kind of bored, and he's like, whatever, all right. And that's when Lark comes in, and he knocks, and a knock echoes throughout this massive manor, right? And Lark lets himself in, and Byron says, oh, okay, let's go, And so he hops in the back of the taxi, and they, start to drive. And at first, Byron tries to bring like 80 pounds of luggage, and Lark is like, we can't fit this in the, like, look at what we're driving, You didn't give me money to buy a really fancy truck. So we're driving my truck. We can fit 2 bags, you know? And so it's kind of a little bit of
It'd be
comedic.
fun if you just, like, if there was, like, no, they didn't even say anything about it. Like, Byron just, like, gets into the back of the truck, and Lark just looks at the massive thing of bags, picks out 2, puts it in the back, and drives off, leaving a huge stack of bags
drives
there.
away. Yeah. And they get to drive and they start to talk, you know. At first, Byron's kind of like, shush, you know, like, you're a peasant, you're the help. Like, don't talk to me, you know. But after a few hours, Byron's kind of getting bored and he's getting a little hungry. And so he asks if they could pull off to the side and go to there's a diner, right? Oh, we'll go to a diner, right? And so they pull into this crazy, like, diner, 50s style diner that's on an asteroid, right? And they chat about philosophy over eggs, right? And Lark basically presents himself as, like, you know, there is no God. There is no extraordinary special power, right? The only thing that we have is the people in our lives, right? And so in order to live a life that anyone would consider fulfilling, you have to treat the people in your life well, you know? And Byron basically goes in the opposite direction. He says, well, there is a God, right? There is this extraordinary power, the supernatural deity, right? And he created all of these varieties of experience, right? And our job as humans is to experience everything that we can, right? Because why else would a God have made this if not to experience it? You know, people are secondary to experience, right? That's kind of the philosophical butting of
very
heads.
Like individualistic, like self-realization sort of
exactly
idea, right? That's the religion.
Exactly. The accessionists are all about the self. They're not really interested in community, you know? And so they sit, they talk about eggs, or they talk about eggs. They talk about philosophy over the eggs, and then they're like, yeah, all right, it's good to talk to you. We don't really, our 2 stratas of the social hierarchy don't really interact very often. It's nice to talk with someone whose experience is so vastly different than my own, right? And Byron is kind of like, sure, whatever. Can we go now? And so Lark kind of sighs, and he's a little bit put out by that, but he pays for the eggs and the breakfast and the coffee and stuff, and they get back in the car. And they drive off to the first planet, the planet of Eros. Eros. ... End of episode 1. Right? Pardon.
What do you have any idea, just so I can picture these guys? What do Byron and Mr. Lark look like?
See, I didn't really have an idea for how they looked. I kind of figured Byron to be a very slender, physically fit man, black hair, like kind of the peak of perfect human being as far as he's concerned, right? And he's not...
Are you saying he's Timothy Chalamet?
Yeah, he's Timothy Chalamet. That's my peak human being, right? Yeah, but like a very like no blemishes, no creases on his skin, right? Everything is perfect because he has so much money. Right, that he's been genetically and physically manipulating himself. Adrian Brody, sure. Adrian Brody in Predators, if you've seen Predators, that would be a pretty good Byron Snipes, you know?
Okay, I like it.
With the 6-pack abs and his like cool cut haircut, and he's like a badass, you know? I could see that. And because the whole thing is obviously Byron versus Lark, right? They're 2 opposites. And so I was thinking Mr. Lark is kind of a schlubby older dude who kind of wears his age and, the blemishes and the marks and the scars on his face and body, right? Like as badges of honor, right? They show where he's been and where he's going, you know? So I was thinking...
Is it Josh Brolin?
Josh Brolin would be good. I think maybe a little too tall, right? But give me a mixture between Josh Brolin and Danny DeVito. And that's Lark right there.
Tom Cruise.
There, perfect. There, Tom Cruise, the first person that comes to my mind when I think of somebody who isn't scared of aging.
You said someone shorter, and that's the only...
That's the only short man you can think of. But yeah, Tom Cruise.
Anthony Hopkins. Younger Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins.
Maybe younger Tommy Lee Jones.
Ooh, that's a good
Tommy
one.
Lee
Younger
Jones
Tommy Lee Jones.
Men in Black.
Mm-hmm. First Men in Black Tommy Lee Jones, I could really see that. I think he would make a good Lark. Because I also think Tommy Lee Jones is like that in real life. He just likes his family and having a good steak and a milk whenever he wants. You know, he just seems like that kind of a guy. Yeah. You don't remember from the first Captain America, he has a big steak and a milk?
I don't remember that.
Oh, it's a great scene. He's talking with Arnim Zola, and he's like, hey, I'm having a steak and a milk, and you don't get to eat anything, so fuck you. And we're like, all right, Tommy, you jerk. That's what I thought in the movie, at least, because he was being mean to that Nazi man. I'm just joking.
I remember now. Yeah, I forgot he was the general in that movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised they never brought him back for anything else. Like, I would have thought they would have brought him back for Endgame or something, like they bump into him, you know?
How would I didn't think they were going to turn... Yeah, maybe, yeah. He'd have to... Yeah. I mean, that's a cameo, you know?
Yeah, turn him into the Red Hulk. See what happens.
But he'd be dead.
He would be dead.
Everybody's dead. He was an old man in World War II. There's no way he'd make it to 2020.
Counter argument. You can't throw a shield and have it bounce back to you. So I feel like we can kind of abandon some rules.
Okay, well, everyone else from that time period was dead in the movie, so... Except
we saw Peggy. Peggy got to be there. And Howard Stark got to be there. So I feel like, you know what? It's whatever.
Yeah, do you remember how? It was they went in the past.
Yeah, go to the past. That's what I mean. Or maybe he's in the quantum zone.
You want them to blow, like, I don't know, like $600,000 on having Tommy Lee Jones for 10 seconds?
Yes. That's how good of an actor he is. You know what? Make it $1 million and he has to wear the Two-Face makeup from Batman Forever.
Yeah, okay.
They don't explain it. He's just in a briefing room or whatever. And he's having a big conversation with a whole bunch of other dudes in suits, but he's dressed like Two-Face for no reason.
No one addresses it.
No, of course not. Until George Clooney shows up and punches him in the mouth. Back to the TV show. This is not a Captain America: The First Avenger commentary podcast. This is a podcast about a sex planet. That's right. Eros is the sex planet. You can imagine where I got the name from, right?
What?
And so this whole planet has been engineered for the purposes of the Moor. And so everything on the planet is an intense aphrodisiac. All of the food, all of the drink, the air you breathe, right? If you ate a blade of grass, you would get a boner, right? Like, that's how crazy sex wired everything is on this planet. And so the whole time, Lark is just going... This is an X-rated episode of this TV show, by the way. I'm not sure how we could do the sex planet as anything else, right? This will make Herogasm from The Boys Season 4 look like
you could just blur out everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could blur out everything.
The whole episode's blurred out.
Oh, great. I bet the fans would love that. Yeah. And it's the first episode, so it saves you a whole lot of money or second episode, because no one's going to watch the third.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole time is kind of like Lark is trying to resist, because Lark is very much like I like sex as an expression of compassion and affection for someone else, but just the mere act of it doesn't do a whole lot for me, right? And so Lark is just he is like the stuffy British butler in an orgy, right? He's like, oh my, look at this. But he's not British and he's not stuffy. He's just a dude. And he's like, no, thank you. I don't want this to happen. I'd really rather not be party to this, right? But throughout the episode, he's just kind of like, well, when in Rome, right? Like he gives in towards the end, right? But the whole episode is about Byron, right? He starts and he's like, I'm gonna stick my dick in everything that moves, right? And so he's running around, he's fucking people, boys, girls, theys, thems, doesn't matter, right? But after a while of this kind of ravenous, animalistic plowing, he meets somebody and she's like on his level, right? And they are going at it. And he really starts to feel something for this woman, right? And he really is starting to get like enamored with her, and they're banging, and they bang for like 7 hours, let's say. And at the end of the 7 hours, Byron is like, he's got his arm around her, they're lying in bed, they're naked, and he's like, do you want to do this together? Like, do you want to do the more together, right? Because that I don't know, I think that could be a fun thing for us to do, we could, and she's kind of like, what? Whatever. Yeah, sure, I'll meet you back at your car, right? And she goes off and she goes to continue having fun in the huge orgy, right? Meanwhile, Lark is kind of like, oh, well, we're having a little bit of fun. And then he finishes his, like, thing because he's not really that interested. And he walks back to the car and he sees that Byron has been sitting in the car for a few hours, right? Butt naked, just waiting for this lady to come back and join him, right? And the day elapses, right? The sun starts to rise, and Lark says, like, hey, man, we have to go, Like, if you want to stay on the schedule that you set, we need to leave right now. I don't think she's coming. And Byron, for a second, you see this, like, really mournful, sorrowful look cross across his face, right? And he's just, you think he might start to cry, and then immediately he snaps back into the, yeah, let's do it, let's go, Like, he snaps back into the character of Byron Snipes, And they leave. And that's the end of episode 3. The last episode I have is Krasi. That would be, that's the end of episode 2. The last episode I have written down for ideas is Krasi, which is episode 3, and that's the alcohol planet. And they arrive on this planet, and it is like Willy Wonka's like Wonderland, except everything's booze, And so Lark and Byron get out, and Byron, like, immediately he starts enjoying himself of the festivities, like drinking out of fountains and sticking his head underwater and drinking the water, and he's like, it's wine, woo, that sort of thing. And Lark is like, oh, well, I'm driving, I can't actually get super fucked up, but I can go to a bar, right? And so they have this little local bar, that's for the drivers. And so Lark goes into this bar, and it's small, and it's drab, and it's a dive, and it's just full of all the other dudes and women who have been driving these accessionists on the moor, right? And so the whole time, Byron is just getting into ridiculous alcohol-fueled, adventures, and Lark is chatting with these people in the bar, and he's drinking the drinks, and by the end of the episode, I want Byron to get to that, you all know, that end of the night sort of melancholy you get when you've been drinking for a while, right? And then you just kind of sit by yourself for a little bit while being, like, absolutely fucked up, and you just kind of get sad. Yeah, that happens to everybody, right? And so I want Byron to kind of, like, he's having so much fun, he's partying, he's in a festival, right? Like Mardi Gras, right? And then he sits down for a second, and he looks up, and he notices that everyone's walked off without him, right? And he's just kind of mournful. He's not crying, but he's sad, and he kind of can't stop thinking about that woman from Eros, right? And so he walks back to the car, right? And he notices the dive bar, and he's like, oh, well, Lark will be in there, right? And he goes in, and he sees Lark is, like, standing on the bar, right, with all the other drivers, and they're singing, and they're dancing, they're having a great time, right? And so eventually, like, and Byron at first is a little taken aback, but then he joins in, he starts singing along with them and having a great time. He's having more fun at this shitty dive bar drinking crap beer than he ever did in the Willy Wonka booze wonderland,
Yeah.
And by the end of the night, like, Lark is super drunk and he's like holding on to Byron, right? And Byron like takes him back to his car and he puts him in the back seat and he throws a blanket over top of him and he's like, all right, Mom, like, I'll see you in the morning, right? Like, you sleep it off and we'll get headed in the morning. And Byron sits in the passenger side seat and falls asleep there. And like, he realizes, you know, as he's falling asleep, he thinks this may be the first truly selfless act he has ever done, you know, of just letting Lark sleep in the back seat rather than having to sleep in the front seat, you know? And he thinks about that, and then they both fall asleep, right? And they wake up the next day and they head off to the third planet, which would be drugs. So we can have a whole world of adventure on the drugs planet. But yeah, that's the idea I had. And obviously, I'm sure you can see the emotional, like, end point of this show is at the end of the journey, Byron learns his lesson that maybe actually people are not, like, worthless and that making friends is a good thing. Right, but I do want to have the woman that he falls for on the sex planet come back, right? I would like her to come back on the compassion planet. That's where I want her to come back. And on that planet, it's just all about, like, feeling for other people, right? That's the whole thing. And so there's, like, a chemical in the air that allows you to more emphatically feel other people's emotions and more emphatically feel for other people, right? And she, meets Byron again, and Byron's like, I miss you, blah, 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 blah. And he, like, tries to give her a kiss, and she's like, and they hug, and they start to talk, and she's, like, tearing up because he's talking about how he really feels, right? His, like, true emotions. And he thinks that it's real because it's, like, being reciprocated. And then, by the end of the episode, he realizes that it's not, she's showing compassion for him. This is not a reciprocal relationship, right? They eventually get off the planet and they meet again, right? Just like when the chemicals have worn off. And she's like, I think you're an asshole, right? I don't like you, You're a daddy's boy who's been given everything in life. I worked my way to the top, right? I became an accessionist because it was the next career move for me, right? Like, I run one of the top, like, makeup companies in the world, in the galaxy or something, Doesn't have to be makeup, it could be any corporation, right? And so that's when Byron's, like, real, like, emotional core, is decimated, and he really just, he breaks down, And Lark is the only one who actually has any compassion for him, because Lark is the only one who cares about him when he's not breathing in this chemical. He just has compassion for him because he is another person, and they are friends, right? Mm-hmm. And towards the end of the show, they finally get back after the Moor, and Byron gets dropped off at his mansion, and Lark mentions, like, oh, I'm gonna go meet my girlfriend for dinner, right? And Byron says, oh, where? And it's like, oh, this place. Oh, it's nice. That's a good place. That's a nice spot. Yeah, I figured we have a big dinner after the payday. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's good. And Byron goes back and he sits in his big, massive, like, throne in his enormous and empty manor, right? And then you see him stand up and he walks out the door, right? We don't see where he goes, you don't see what he does, right? But that's the end of Byron on the Moor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's my show.
It's like this whole journey of excess that I assume everyone else is, but everyone feels like this wonderful sense of, like, it's like somebody, like, studying abroad in college. Like, they'd always talk, oh, what did you do when you were on the Moor? Like, how was the Moor for you? Everybody talks about it, but, like, for Byron, instead of becoming, feeling like he experienced everything, it changes him differently.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't feel fulfilled in the same way that the people around him do after it. You know,
changed him in a different way.
Yeah. So that's the show. Byron on the Moor. I thought it was fun. It did take a lot of wrangling to get that idea figured out, but afterwards, I think it was a good idea.
I like that a
X-rated TV
lot.
show though. I don't know how you got.
I'm very glad you got that title because I like that idea a lot. I like the whole idea of the Moor, this pilgrimage, experiential journey, and this trip for this guy who's like all about this like sort of hedonistic lifestyle that like over time he's not really getting what he was hoping out of it, and he's just kind of disappointed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
But in being disappointed, he gets something else out of it.
He gets a friend.
A new idea of life.
Exactly. And that's cool. What it's all about, isn't it? Experiencing things and taking things away from those experiences. That's life, baby. Well, thank you all for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Goth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, I will be here next week with my podcasting associate with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and enjoy. And the title of that show will be, drum roll please. All right, pick a number 1 through 3.
1 through 3. 1.
1. Ego lives.
Ego lives.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
There's one title on this list that when you get it, you will be so mad at me, and I think it will be the funniest thing ever.
Is it, Res Publica Season 5?
You'd never, ever guess it. I'm sorry, but you'll never guess the title.
I don't think, no matter what it could be, it wouldn't be as mad as I'd be if it was Res Publica Season 5.
That's fair.
Because I would have to read the book again. Because now it's been too long where I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a really long time.
I remember the vague stuff, but I don't remember. I don't remember where I left off.
Yeah, I mean.
I have some notes on like how the show is supposed to go and like how it's supposed to end.
Yeah.
But I don't have like the details, which is what I need.
Yeah. You'd have to read that book again. That'd be a bitch. No. But Ego Lives next week. I think it's gonna be fun.
I think it is too. I'm excited. Ego Lives.
Right.
That'll be the next episode of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. But for now, we're gone.
Goodbye.